Howdy folks, Rudros here, and today we are going to talk about a deck that is very near and dear to my heart, and that's Ruby Amethyst. It has been a staple since the game came out a year ago, and in Set 5, it may have finally met its match. We'll just say it's struggling a bit more this set than it ever has before. It's got trials and tribulations. You know it's had its share. Maybe that's not really appropriate for this deck since it's been around for so long, but this list I'm showing you today is about going very quickly, not necessarily aggro, but going as fast as you can. And as you notice, there's a very key common card in this deck that's missing. It says Be Prepared. So since a lot of this deck is familiar to you, or at least should be if you've been playing the game, if you're new, well, welcome. But since a lot of this deck is kind of familiar, here is the problem this deck is in right now. One, it needs to be able to handle aggro, which, with some key card inclusions like Gaston, it actually has one of the best ways to handle aggro, I think, out of most of the decks. Rafiki on 1, into Gaston on 2, into potentially Fox on 3, and then you just sit on something like Castle and just ride that to victory. And you have cards like Brawl and Medusa that can just answer aggro. So I think this deck, assuming you see your correct line, is great at answering aggro. Obviously, if you don't see it 1-drop, you can't snake, you're not playing something till turn 3, you're kind of in trouble. But nonetheless, I think this deck is quite good at answering aggro. However, blue has gotten so strong this set, and blue continues to get stronger and stronger, and they got a lot of good cards that help them answer one of the few advantages we had on blue decks, which was the Queen's Castle. This set, blue-red in particular, got the Ruby Chromicon, which lets boost anything's attack by 1, which means a Maui can now one-shot a Queen's Castle. Beforehand, he couldn't do that. Well, the Chromicon lets him do that. They also got Cusco, which puts any item or location into your Inkwell. So now they can just take out the castle without even needing to challenge it. That was a huge advantage we had over blue-red decks, and now it's gone. And they got the Hideaway ability. So Cusco's bad enough because he comes on a body with 2 lore, and the Hideaway just jams it in the right away. So Castle is not the advantage we once had. You're going to see in some of these matches coming up just how fast these blue decks have gotten, and Ruby Amethyst, it can't handle the dime. We still do not have a way to answer the lucky dime. And these decks, they ramp so quickly, and the dime produces so much lore out of nowhere on cards like Tamatoa, or maybe the new Sheriff of Nottingham, the new Mufasa. We just can't keep up with it. So not only do we have to be able to handle aggro, we have to be able to go so quickly that we can win in these blue matchups before they do. And so I've geared this deck to be about as quick as it could. There's a lot of people that said, yeah, you just drop the whole Flynn Rider Sisu package from last set. I don't think you can. I think this is the only way you have a chance of beating these blue decks. This is what allowed Ruby Amethyst to beat it before. At the start of set 4, blue-red was actually so dominant against Ruby Amethyst because, again, Ruby Amethyst doesn't have a way to answer the dime. So then people put in the Flynn Sisu package, and it flipped. Now Ruby Amethyst had the advantage against blue-red, and usually they put out 1 card a turn, so it was very easy to answer those cards with something like Be King Undisputed. And then you could ride the castle to victory because a single Maui wasn't going to take care of a castle for you. So we need to go quick, and I'll touch on Be Prepared here in a minute. Here's like the changes we've made for this set. As you see, a lot of this is pretty standard. We did put Rafiki back in. We need a way to be able to challenge aggro. He's very good at that. If you go Rafiki on 1, they go Daisy, or let's say it's flipped, they Daisy, then you Rafiki. Yes, Rafiki will not kill it in one shot if you just slam into the Daisy. But if they counter challenge with the Daisy, they're not questing with her. Yes, they'll kill the Rafiki, but you can then bounce it with the Mim. You can get down the Gaston. Like, I'm okay taking that trade any time of the week. Plus, if it's not the Daisy specifically, he's going to answer anything else on their board. So I think he's very important there. Gaston feels great in aggro and is an absolutely terrible card in any other matchup. He can't even sing any songs that we have, but he is really good against aggro as he can just one-shot Daisy and then live to hit something else too. And then it gives him a nice bounce target with the Fox. So I hate having to include this card because outside of aggro, I never ever want to see it or play it. But it's kind of a necessary evil, I think, at this point. All these other cards are very standard. This is the big new one, Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, which is 2 lore. We're running all 4 copies. This is 8 lore. If you can see all 4 of these and all 4 of your goats, And that's assuming no bounces, no quests, anything else. This is 16 lore. This is most of the way to your win condition. So if you get 4 more lore, you're golden. So a couple bounces, a couple early quests. If you get 1 Flynn trigger, any quests, and see all those, that's your victory. You need as much cheese in this deck as you can. And what I mean by cheese is cards that just instantly gain you lore, because you have to get ahead of those dime decks, because they will get you in the end. So, Brawl, of course, still some removal. Friends on the other side is our card draw. 1 copy of the Spellbook. It's just another way to instantly gain lore. Kind of sucks against Blue-Gray, because they have a lot of ways to answer it, even more now with the Cusco and the Hideaway, as does Red-Blue, which they didn't really have before. But if they're using that on your Spellbook, it means your locations are untouched. So despite the fact that they have a lot more tools to answer it, I think locations are still very good. I like Legacy a lot here too, because if they don't have it, if they don't have the instant removal and they are forced to challenge it, it will go so much slower, and Library and Legacy having 8 health means they usually have to commit at least a decent amount into these locations to get rid of them. Castle can still carry you if you get there. So is this deck weaker against the other mid-range decks now? Yes, I think it is. And I think you're going to have to make a choice with your version of Ruby Amethyst. Trust me, I started the set kind of playing it pretty similar to last set, just teching it a bit for aggro, but it can't deal with the blue decks. It cannot deal with the blue decks. It's far too slow. So I went with this fast version. So if there's some alternate cards you want to consider for this, I'm going to show them. So first of all, first and foremost, Be Prepared. I have a version of this where I tried it with Be Prepared. And Be Prepared is always what it is. It's great, and there are times that I missed not having it. If you're going to put it into this list, I would recommend taking out... if you want to keep your same inkable costs, I would take out the Legacy, the Spellbook, and I think I took out a Madame Medusa. If you don't care about the inkables, probably Library over the Legacy, because the Legacy generates 2 lore. Here's the thing with Be Prepared. Against Hyper Aggro, it doesn't really help, because either they'll have already won by that point, or by the time you would get to the Be Prepared, usually the game is over, and they're just a knowledge and wisdom away from winning anyway. So it doesn't really do anything against Hyper Aggro. And the same against the ramp decks, they can be prepared so much sooner than you can. By the time you get to 7 ink, usually they're already set up. They might have a dime out. So yes, the Be Prepared will temporarily stop that Tamatoa, but at least in the practice I've done, they then just jam out another one, and it's like, all right, well, and then now you're spending your entire turns just using Be Prepared over and over again, and it ultimately doesn't matter because they're still diming everything that they put down. So I've tried it without it. Again, I've felt some success. You are going to struggle against the mid-range decks if you're not running this card, but the speed of this also has been very enjoyable, and I've been pleased with it. You could go back to Mini if you just need to put on early lore pressure. If you don't see the Flynn Sisu combo, or they have ways to answer Flynn early, which is not difficult to do, Mini can be another card. It kind of sucks against the Ruby Mirrors because it just dies to a Brawl. Against Steel, it's okay. It'll die to a Smash, but it will survive against a Storm Raging Fire. So, again, none of these are in my deck because I don't think they're the better options, but there's something you could consider. I think Super Goof is probably the best one you could put in there, as it's instant lore. It does help against the aggro too, so not only are you challenging them, you're keeping up lore-wise, so I don't think Super Goof is a bad one at all. He's just kind of weird because our 4 slot is very heavy. We need the rabbit, we need the goat. We also have both the locations, so there's a lot of things we can do on 4, but you could throw Super Goof in there. Isabella is something to consider. Like, she's kind of slow. She's not going to be questing till turn 6, assuming you get her down right on 5. But in theory, like, if you could be using your other characters to challenge, to stave off their characters, especially if it's aggression, and then Isabella just quests alone for 4 lore. That's really nice. Still, she dies to a Medusa. I don't like that so much. Jim, I have a very love-hate relationship with. I think he's really fun. I think you need even more locations in this if you're going to run him. And I personally have just always struggled to see the Jim and the location at the same time. If on turn 5 you can play Jim right into the castle or the legacy, and then he's evasive too, that's really nice. So if you're the type that likes that, by all means, go all in on the Jim and the locations. I don't think you can do terrible there. And then finally, bosses on a roll. We just wanted more ways to cheese lore. I don't like that this costs 3. I mean, it's nice you can sculpt your hand, like, and it's still a cheese of a lore. Like, it's not terrible. I don't know what I would cut for this. So that's something you can consider. Let me show you some matches, show you how this deck performs against some of the really fast stuff and against some of the really late game control stuff. First up, I want to show you how we deal with the blue decks, and this is the deck that has kind of forced us into this. We have to stay with this Flynn Sisu package until we get something that's even faster. I don't know what that would be. You will notice there is a Madam Mim Elephant in here because I was testing this card out. It just feels very slow. Like, the Fox is great because it has Rush, but the Elephant, like, in theory, it's just another way to keep bouncing something like the Goat or the Rabbit, right? But man, it didn't feel good. I always just ended up inking it. It felt very slow. It would still die to red removal like Medusa. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Elephant. In theory, like, if these games went on long enough, in theory, you would use it as like, oh, I just need one more bounce of this Goat. Boom, I found it in the Elephant. But it hasn't worked out that way because, again, these blue decks are so freaking fast now. So, catching up on the match, you can see I have Gaston out just to pump up the Flynn. It does force my opponent to brawl the Flynn, which is quote-unquote nice, just in the sense that it makes them they can't sit there and ramp. They do have the Chica, which rewards them for ramping, which is what they're doing right now. Chica is very nice. Don't overlook her support either. Her support can be quite powerful. But Gaston, unfortunately, isn't doing anything right now. So the castle is the only thing that's going to be getting me lore at this point, as Gaston just has to sit there. And if he wanted to, he could exert the Chica if he wanted to force me to get the Gaston to go in there. So we want to just get out as much as we can. We're going to ink. We're going to move him there. And we are just trying to get lore as fast as we possibly can. I've got 2 Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom in hand. You can fire these off early if you wish. If you know your opponent has some kind of hand disruption, so whether they're playing outright discard or maybe a whole new world, you fire those cards off. You cannot afford to lose those cards and not use them. I get to draw quite a bit off the castle there, and as you can see, I have 3 Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. Now, I know that this is blue-red. My opponent has no way to interact with my hand, so I'm going to go for the surprise factor. I go ahead and move the Elephant into the castle, and I got a single lore off the Maleficent, but the castle is the only thing carrying me right now. This Elephant, yeah, it was a nice bounce. I could have bounced the Gaston, but I wanted to keep the card draw up, which is why I did the Maleficent. Now, our opponent, look at this. It's turn. We're on our 6th ink, and our opponent has Mufasa. We have to do a kind of random die roll here to determine what goes back to their hand. Our opponent has Mufasa, so if they drop a dime here, they're already going to be off to, what, 4 plus the dime. That's 8 lore just from this Mufasa. That's insane. We're not even in, we would be in Be Prepared range this turn. Now, with the castle out, Be Prepared would feel really good here. So trust me, this is one of the matches where it's like, well, I kind of wish I had it, but I just don't have it. So here comes Maleficent. At this point, I actually am kind of okay going wide because they have committed this Mufasa. So in my head, I'm like, well, you know what? If he Be Prepared now, at least he's killing his own Mufasa. So I'm just going to go wide. I don't care if he Be Preps, plus it keeps my castle safe anyway. And with the Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, that's 6 lore right there. So our target number right now is 14. We just need to get to 14 lore, and we can win this game. As a matter of fact, we're set up to do that next turn. We're set up for lethal. So this is my 7th turn of the game. Opponent inks first. And you're going to see some Mufasa shenanigans here. Because I think they're deciding that they were counting up the ink as well and deciding, okay, do I need to attack you, or can I just quest and kind of do my own thing? Like, do I need to... Now, they don't know we have 3 Knowledge and Wisdom in hand, which with, 4 on board, that would put us to 13 plus 2 from the castle. We have lethal next turn. They just don't know it. But that's the power of this card. Oh, here comes a lucky dime. So watch this. He's going to quest with Mufasa, get all the lore for that. Dime again, goes up to 9. Our opponent has just caught up to us. On turn 7, they went from 0 to whoop. Already, these decks go so fast, and we can't answer a lucky dime. Look at that. It's a lucky dime. Lucky for us, they don't attack, so we get to quest to 15, and I just show them the Gathering Wisdom. So boom, we steal it. Without that, our opponent was on lethal next turn, especially if they dropped Tamato, and we were discussing that. A Tamato with 2 dimes, like, it would have been over. On turn, I only got 8 turns. Like, that's how fast these decks go, these blue decks. The dime is, you'll see another video coming up talking about that, but for now, just, you need to go quick. And this was a match where Flynn didn't even get to stick around very much. So this match, I'm kind of looking for your traditional Sisu Flynn opening, which is what you need to be looking for when you're going against these blue decks, because they go so quick. I mean, we went as fast as we could, and it's a good thing we cheesed at that turn, because our opponent would have just won. Like, I would have had to answer what they were doing. My goodness. Mufasa, what a card. Lucky Dime, what a card too, right? There's another Chicha. I can't really quest with Rafiki, which isn't amazing, so I just have to put the Flynn out. Chicha alone, though, already she stops the Flynn. She matches it, so... like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Flynn is great, because he's not. I really don't like Flynn, to be honest, as a card, but I think it is the quickest way we can get lore early. If you know of a better one, more reliable one, by all means, tell me. I'd love to know. I could have put out the Sisu there. I opt to brawl the Chicha, as I don't want him to get continued card draw if he's able to double ink. Currently, he's not showing anything else like Fishbone Quill, so he would have had to have either found one or found a one-jump or whatever. But our opponent, realizing that, now has to return Brawl the Flynn. So this match, still not going really the way we would want it to. I just go ahead and throw the goat out. I want to get as much guaranteed lore as I possibly can. I have Quest with the Rafiki, knowing that the Tipo, if he strikes the Rafiki will live, and again, I have to put on early lore pressure. He does strike the Rafiki. This way, if Rafiki counters the Tipo, Rafiki will actually die. But if I quest, he can also free trade into the Rafiki, so I just quest with the goat. I don't want to bounce yet. I'm trying to just get card draw. I'm kind of in this rock and a hard place right now where I can bounce the goat for lore, but I need to keep cards filtering into my hand with the rabbit. Luckily, our opponent has stalled out a bit too. Yes, they're on 8 ink, which is incredible, but they haven't seen Flaversham, they haven't seen the engine, so this is a really good time to jam out the castle. I ink the Fox because, for me, I need the card draw at this point. He slaps down the Mufasa. Maybe not ideal. Maybe we would rather have Kuzco or something to get rid of the castle. So again, we're gonna try to ride the castle. You have to hope they don't find their answers for you. If they see the Kuzco, they see the hideaway right away, you're not going to get it. One thing to note, too, that's in the blue decks, but so we get to draw a lot off the castle. That's huge. We have a goat, 2 knowledge and wisdom, so we have 5 lore in hand. I'm going to bounce the goat. There's another lore. I'll either slap out the knowledge, and so I opt to move there because I want the what's it called? So I do a knowledge and wisdom up to 12. Boom, we're going fast. Again, I know I'm against red-blue, so I know he can't disrupt my hand. If you are going against someone that can make you discard or whatever, you might need to just jam the goat back out or fire off both knowledge and wisdoms because you don't want to risk them getting rid of them with a whole new world. Luckily, something like Ursula Deceiver can't get rid of them. There's another. We're up to 14. We drew more. So... We're doing good, right? We're at 14 lore. We've got 2 on board. We've got knowledge and wisdom. We've got goat. We've got the legacy. Like, we are doing fine, but look at what our opponent is on. They're on a Tamatoa that's currently questing for 4, plus a Mufasa that quests for 4, plus they're going to regenerate whatever they want. And here I opt to put out the goat for 17. Do the knowledge and wisdom 19 basically says, okay, you must win right now. Otherwise, I've guaranteed got the game on board. So you can see how fast, and this deck isn't even getting a bunch of Flynn triggers. Imagine if we're getting the Flynn triggers, how fast we can go. But knowledge and wisdom is absolutely key here. There's an argument, maybe even abandon the Flynn and just go so much into the card draw to get the knowledge and wisdom. But I've currently, at least, I still like the quote-unquote threat Flynn presents. Look at what our opponent has. So with the Tamatoa, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a Popsicle. They're going to be able to reactivate their ink off of this too. They have the Maurice's Workshop, so they get to play an item. So they're going to get a quill or a hook, reactivate with the Mufasa. They're up to 12. If they dime 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's 6 off the dime. They nearly won the game. They didn't have quite enough. They don't have enough to... They have to win because obviously they're Sheriff of Nottingham. Look how much lore they can get so darn quickly. Yeah, and so they can see they don't have anything for it, but just showing that even as fast as I was going, our opponent B-preps, so they get to end it on their turns. Even as fast as I was going, they were 2 lore away from winning. 2 lore! They already got to 18 that quickly. Like, man, these blue decks are just so quick, and it's so hard for Ruby Amethyst to deal with it since we just cannot deal with that lucky dime. All right, now that I've showed you what an absolute mad lad you have to be able to beat these blue decks, let's show you how some aggro works. As you can see, I had the 3-cost uninkable Sisu, which is great against aggro, right? The big shift Sisu, again, I think it's a bit too slow for the blue decks. It doesn't really hit anything. You don't have Ice Block to lower... you can't get rid of a Mr. Smee because the Sisu doesn't hit it, and you don't have anything like Ice Block to manipulate their attack power so that Sisu hits more targets. It's really good against aggro, as it's pretty much a guaranteed board wipe against everything in aggro. So I do really like it in aggro specifically. If this game ever gets a sideboard, I'd be happy to have that. But in the aggro matchups, you can absolutely use the Sisu. As you can see, it's not in the final list, mainly just because it doesn't do anything against the blue-red decks. And I'm really trying to beat the blue. I feel like we have enough tools to beat the aggro. It's the blue I'm worried about. So here, our opponent has a Daisy Piglet. Piglet alone stops the Flynn. I was kind of trying to aggro race them. I've got a lot of choices here. I could Fox. Probably the Sisu's the most effective one. Yep, not only do we get rid of the Daisy, we keep the Piglet on a low number. I don't quest with the Rafiki, though, because the Piglet could free trade. Granted, I could then just trade back into the Piglet, but our opponent opts to go wide, and we actually put the Broom out so that way they can draw off of it. And I'm feeling good already. You really just have to get through those first couple turns. It helped that, I got to go first in this game. There's the Fox. We bounce back, ink the Rafiki, and just pass back to them. Fox also has 4 attack, so I am now threatening to get my Flynn trigger, which is very nice. I think Ruby Amethyst, at least in the testing I've done so far, I have felt this is the strongest way to beat up on the aggro. You've just got so many good early tools with the Brawl, with the Baby Sisu, with the Maleficent, with the Madame Mim Fox. Yeah, I this one I feel like the most comfortable with, maybe even more so than Blue Steel, but it's those later range decks that we're going to have trouble with. Here, I think we might be able to wipe out this whole board. Yep, we take out the Donald, and then we take out the Chernobog, trade there, and I play just the Flynn and Gaston and say, no, you can keep your Piglet. That's fine. I'm just going to gain a whole... I'm gonna go... You think you're aggro? No, I don't think so, sir. I'm going to go faster than you. Unfortunately, they thwart our Flynn just by slapping down a goat, but I do get rid of the Piglet. Honestly, at this point, I should just quest with the Flynns. Like, I'm holding on to them because I'm still trying to get that... I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can trigger them. But once the goat comes down, I should just quest with them because they're never going to proc. I don't have... If I had Maui in hand, maybe that'd be one thing. But so if I was smart, I would be questing with Flynn here. There is a point when it's okay to give up on Flynn. And just like, yeah, I'm not going to get that trigger. They do Knowledge and Wisdom. Now, lucky for us, our opponent is gassed. They don't have the Chromicon. They don't have the card draw. So we're both in top deck mode, and I tend to have the superior cards here in top deck, especially with something like the Castle. I go ahead and take out with the Gaston. The Gaston does not quest for lore, so it is better to keep the Fox around over the Gaston. Again, I should just be questing with these Flynn. It would either force him to exert the goat, in which I could get the goat off the field, or... whatever. Luckily, our opponent, the goat, is the only thing they have that can even remotely challenge. And I think this is the point when I finally realize, yeah, you know what, maybe I just need to quest with these Flynns. So I have Maleficent take out that Maleficent, keep as many of my bodies on board as I possibly can. Go ahead and sing Friends. Probably going to try to get out another castle here. I ink the Flynn, realizing, yeah, that's not going to work. Sisu's not terrible, too, because it's 2 lore, but I like the castle, yeah. So we get out both. And just say, which Sisu has no attack power. And I finally realized, yeah, okay. And my opponent was saying it too. He's like, yeah, you should have just been questing with the Flynns the whole time. I was like, yeah, I was being too protective of him. So they finally get the Chromicon. Lucky for us, it's just far too late at this point. And we win off the back of our castles. This time, we know what we're going against, so it kind of helps. Like, it's kind of weird. You want to sculpt your hand differently if you're going against aggro versus if you're going against the blue. And when you're going blind, that can be difficult to do. So this time realizing, yeah, I can't really do the Flynn here. I need to just try to match this Daisy. One thing I like about the Broom into Daisy is that the Broom can smack her and then you can bounce with the Snake. So the Snake can still finish her off and the Broom survives. And the Daisy's going to go ahead and give us some lovely card draw. Which I realized too, well, I guess if the Daisies are going to give me a bunch of cards, I don't need to. So we bounce with the Snake. You'll see our opponent has a big board of Daisies, right? And the Donald. So we have a lot of cleanup to do. Luckily, they still haven't seen any card draw, and they just gave us 2 cards. So again, I can ink any Maleficents, anything that maybe normally I'd keep for card draw. I can just ink it anyway. I got a couple options here. I could Snake into Fox. I could use the Sisu. I use the Sisu just to get rid of the Lilo. Some people would say, well, you should use it to get rid of the Daisy. I'm okay with the Daisy sticking around in this particular matchup because they're going to continue to give me cards in hand, unless, of course, I reveal Castle like that, and I have the cards that deal with it. The Snake can take out the injured one. The Fox can take out any of them in one shot. And Sisus and Brawls can take them out, too. If you are going to struggle to deal with the Daisy, yes, you should have opted for the Daisy over that. But yeah, so you see, I clean up 2 more on their board. Ink another one, and he can't... What's he going to do? Challenge with this Daisy into the Fox. Puts out Piglet and the Wendy. is on 14 lore, so they are pushing lore. Again, we got kind of lucky that they didn't see the Chromicon, so they aren't refilling their hand, and then the deck will run out of gas. Here I opt to hit. I'm deciding. This time I do pick the Daisy, because I'm like, I guess I want to deal. The Snake can one-shot the Wendy. That's why I did that, but the Daisy can. The Daisy will... The Daisy can't be one shot by the Snake. Goes all the way to 19, so they're just a knowledge and wisdom away from winning this. So even though we're rapidly answering every card they have, you can see even without the Chromicon, if they see the cards in the right way, they can still be okay. At this point, I just have to hope. All right, well, hope you don't get it. Here, I might slap out a Flynn just because it says, hey, if you don't put a card down. Oh, yeah, and I'm showing them. I'm going to put this Flynn and the Rafik. Just go wide. They're not going to do anything against the whiteboard. They pass, so it means they probably drew a Snake or a Fox if they don't have anything to play. Play the Castle, quest for your heart, hope they don't draw it, hope they don't draw it. This one will essentially just come down to a bit of luck. Can they draw the instant answer, or can we outlast them? Opponent passes again, and he just shows, yep, I had Snake Fox. I'm not winning this game. Technically, they have one more chance to just top deck a Goat or Knowledge and Wisdom, so we go as fast and as wide as we can. And again, this one will kind of just come down to a luck of the draw. Can they get it? Nope, they can't. GG. That's the list. I do not cut a card like Be Prepared lightly. I really like Ruby Amy, but it at least gave me a chance against the blue matchups. Before I altered it to this version, I wasn't able to beat the blue matchups. I think you could still put Be Prepared in this. The point is, you just need to go fast. You saw how quick those blue decks can go. So whether it's the Flynn or if you found some other method to get a lot of lore early, you got to go fast if you want to beat those blue matchups. And are you going to take a hit in the mid-range? Yeah, you probably will. But at least where I live, a lot of people play those blue matchups, so that's what I'm gearing the deck towards. Let me know what you think. Please leave any card ideas, any suggestions you have in the comments below. I always love reading those. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel. I'm really trying to put out more content for everyone, and all the comments and views, everything really help fuel it and keep the engagement up, keep the algorithm happy, all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Hope you're having a great time in set 5, and until next time, take care.